With the release of Terraria 1.4.4, everything has changed for Melee. Now, I'm sure most of you have seen the True Excalibur and the weapons release in the spoilers, but there's much more that has changed with this class. Now, as I'm sure most of you know, the swords, especially in pre-hard mode, were fairly underwhelming. They'd all function more or less the same. You just have that big swing, and you deal some damage and knockback, and there's not a whole lot extra going on. But as of the Labor of Love update, these weapons get a lot more to them. For instance, the Light's Bane now is this really cool slash attack. So in addition to the normal melee hits, you can use this to keep your enemies back and deal more damage. And it's really, really cool. The Blood Butcher has also received some pretty cool changes. So now when you hit an enemy, it applies this bleed effect. Now this is a damage over time effect that will actually stack. So the more times you hit the enemy, the more damage this damage over time effect will do. And ultimately, it will cap out at 20 damage over time, which is pretty significant, especially when you compare this to how much damage it was doing before, probably about 60 DPS. When you have this extra 20 damage linked in there, that's pretty huge, so big buff for this weapon. But we're really just scratching the surface with these weapons. So one of my favorites here is the Blade of Grass, which now is this really, really cool projectile that will spin around. It shoots a little like leaf of some sort projectile, and it'll spin around your character in the whichever direction you're swinging. And yeah, deal some extra bonus damage. Really, really cool. Now, as you can see, there's also a debuff being applied here. This is just poison. It's a lot better because poison as a whole has been buffed as of 1.4.4. You're going to be doing a lot of extra damage from this effect. And of course, the Miramasa also receives a new effect. When you hit an enemy, blue slashes will appear to cut the target. Now, as you've probably guessed, the base damage on these weapons have been toned down just a bit to account for these extra effects. So I'm going to be doing some side-by-side DPS tests from both 1.4.3 and 1.4.4 later on in the video to see what all has been buffed and maybe what's been actually nerfed as a result of these changes. Now, the Volcano might be my favorite change from all of these. It's super, super fun to use. No, they did not add a new weapon. This is just a new name for the Fiery Greatsword, and it is pretty crazy. As you can see, when you hit an enemy, there's a little explosion that happens. Deals a bunch of knockback, a bunch of extra damage, and it's just super satisfying to use. I'll probably actually end up getting this thing. If I ever do like a proper melee playthrough, I definitely will give this a go because it's just so fun to use. Alright, so let's get to the hard mode side of things, and this is where things get pretty exciting. So I'm sure you've all seen the True Excalibur change, but the normal Excalibur here, of course, has also changed. And yeah, I mean, crowd control, just the name of the game here. It's significantly better, covers way more space, you can deal with enemies way easier. So that is a big change there. And then, of course, the True Excalibur. I mean, yeah, same idea, just a little stronger and very, very fun to use. Now, this new version of the True Knight's Edge trades a little bit of range and damage for way, way better crowd control capabilities. Again, swinging around your character, nothing's really getting to you, nothing will hit you. And these projectiles will, yeah, they're just very good at keeping things off of you. So super fun to use here again. And of course we have the Terrorblade, which is, I mean, this one, they all look so cool. They look so awesome. It's insane. Now in terms of damage, I believe this is actually a little lower than what the Terrorblade would be in 1.4.3 and before that. But again, we'll be doing some tests later on to double check and confirm that. But it seems to be doing a little bit less damage. But it's, again, the crowd control here is just insane. And finally, we have the Horseman's Blade, which seems to be about the same besides just that new cool melee effect. Now, I might have missed a weapon. Let me know if I did. And let me know what you guys think about the cool new changes to these swords. Now, to save us some time, I won't be going over everything, but in general, most of these changes have increased the damage output of these weapons. Now, there are a few exceptions, and I'll get to those in a moment. Now, two of the biggest buffs, in my opinion, were the Volcano, because you get that massive explosion and just way more DPS from this, versus the Fiery Greatsword, of course, back in the old update. And the Miramasa's like crazy now. By comparison, it does 150 damage instead of 100 against Skeletron. So big increase there. And Excalibur also sees like an extra 100 DPS through this update. Now the rest see slight increases, especially with the debuffs and everything. They definitely help out, but they're nothing like insane. They're not gonna just break the game or anything. Unfortunately, we do see some weapons that actually get a nerf to damage. Now, those are mainly the true weapons. They all get a slight nerf to damage, except for Terrorblade, which kind of takes a big hit. but in exchange, they get huge crowd control capabilities. It's almost unfair to test these weapons against a single target because they are now, they're meant to keep enemies away and keep things off of you. And they do such a great job of that, and they still deal quite a bit of damage. So while yes, the damage that you're seeing there is a little lower, you'll be able to deal with enemies so much easier. And because the projectiles are way wider, you'll probably be hitting things a little more often. Now, while not every sword got a cool new effect like this, there's a very big change that has happened to the melee class, and that is that all broadsword class melee weapons now use local immunity frames on hit. Sometimes in the older updates, when you would swing your sword at a point-blank range, sometimes the projectiles, they just kind of get eaten up and they wouldn't actually hit. You might be familiar with this idea when using summons in addition to whatever else you're using. Some attacks just won't go through. Well, now, with this new update, that's not really a problem anymore. Additionally, pretty much across the board, just loads of melee weapons have seen buffs to damage, melee speed, and knockback. But it's not just the swords. A few spears have also been updated. You'll see the Rotted Fork now has this little effect to it, kind of similar to Starlight's aesthetic. And of course, Darklands, which you'll know if you saw the spoilers, now deals Shadowflame debuffs, so that's pretty neat. I've been buffed, sort of, not really. It just kind of the cool effects, which is cool. It seems to add a little bit of extra range as well. But beyond that, it's still pretty bad. Flails have also been buffed. So knockback has been increased a little bit, which is always handy. And the spinning flails now actually hit 4 times rather than 3. So you get a little bit of extra damage from those there. So huge changes to the melee class, and I'm at this point pretty interested in maybe giving it a dedicated let's play. So if you guys would like to see a let's play return to the channel, maybe we can do a melee thing and kind of focus on all the new changes, all the new swords, and really get a feel for them in practice. Maybe we'll go in master mode and maybe play on a certain seed or something to spice things up, but we'll see. Let me know in the comments if you would like to see that. But that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you for watching. Subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.